Away, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new episode of League Chat with the Stat. Round 3 had everything, didn't it? From crazy high shots to nail-biting finishes to games that really should have been won that weren't won. Look, round 3 had everything. Thank you so much for tuning in to another great episode this week. Now, look, I just got to get this off my chest. I'm already missing the trophy that I have here for my Supercoach victory 2 years ago. I know that Mr. Juwan, the winner, has now got that trophy probably stored somewhere in his little trophy case somewhere. So, look, lucky for him, he gets a trophy. I'm already missing it. I'm trying to fill in bits and pieces to this new desk. I'm really missing the trophy a lot. But, look, nonetheless, thanks for joining me for another week of League Chat with the Stat. Now, look, let's go through the NRL ladder to start off with. Now, Penrith Panthers are the only team to remain undefeated so far in 2022, and they sit outright first. From second to eighth spot, all sitting on 4 points in the order of the Cowboys, who have been playing some really good football, the Sharks, Knights, Storm, Eels, Raiders, and Broncos. They're all sitting in the top 8 on 4 points. From 9th to 15th, these are the following teams sitting on 2 points with just one win so far this year. And that'll be the Rabbitohs, the Titans, the Bulldogs, the Warriors, the Roosters, Dragons, and Sea Eagles. And last but not least, the West Tigers, who are still winless after 3 games so far this year. Now, guys, thank you again for your support over the last few weeks. We've obviously started to get back to normal numbers of tuning in, and really good to see that. So make sure we're liking the page and subscribing as well. But look, let's talk everything round 3. The Sharks 36 defeated the Dragons 12, and it's such a great win from the Sharks. You know, I thought they really came out with a lot of intent and purpose, and it was a very wet game. It was expected to be a lot of errors. The completions were expected to be necessarily too high, but there was a bit of drop ball here and there. But when you look at everything for the game and itself in the game, you could see that the Sharks really delivered. And in attack, they looked fantastic. The way they got to move the ball in the wet, you know, Nico Hines being a main focal point in that. And look, they just outshone the Dragons. You know, the Dragons obviously copped a bit of the sin bin. Jaden Sugar's high shot on Dale Finucane. Kind of borderline. I don't know if it was a sin bin or not. I know it was a high shot to the head. I just don't know if it warranted a proper sin bin. But look, they fought it out. They found it hard to kind of bounce back from that, and you know, really control the footy in the weather. You know, the weather was so poor. It was torrential rain all of Thursday night, so especially the water over in Wollongong as well. So look, the Sharks played really well. They played some great football. I was really impressed with Nico Hines again, having a great year already at the Sharks. Like I've mentioned before, you know, you get players that leave the Melbourne Storm and go to the Cronulla Sharks, and what you find is that their careers seem to slump, but Nico Hines is playing unreal football. He's continuing the form he had from last year, but except he's playing 80 minutes week in and week out. So, look, he's becoming the buy of the year so far. I think it's between him and Dane Gagai so far from the Knights, but look, he's playing some great football. Look, he still has a bit of work in defense that needs to be done. Definitely needs some work defensively, but look, he's definitely impressed me in the first few weeks. I'm sure as the year goes on, he'll get better defensively, and the combinations will build with Raymond and Katoa down that side. But the disappointing thing for the Dragons is they didn't really aim up. And you could see that Ben Hunt is really trying. You know, he's really putting a lot of effort, but Talatau Amone is kind of not really that confident at the moment. Not sure what's going on. I know he's very early into his career, but kind of needs to involve himself more in the game, like Lachlan Ilias in the last few weeks. But look, the Dragons pack, you know, we've talked about all year just how influential the Dragons pack have been, and the signings that they've made, but when you look at the stats and when you look at everything in total, you know, Francis Moller was the only forward to have run for over 100 meters. So that makes things a lot tougher. You know, he had 12 runs, 102 meters. Blake Laurie, 97 meters. Bird, 95 meters. Sewer, 90 meters. Sims, 54 meters. DeBella, 98 meters. You know, they're not even hitting that 100 mark, which is really disappointing. So they lack that go forward. And the Dragons were just relying on a lot of errors from the Sharks to kind of take over. But it wasn't meant to be. Unfortunately, the Sharks playing some great football. And look, they're really looking like a genuine threat to that top 4 with the way they're going so far. Only, I know 3 rounds in, but you got to appreciate what you're seeing in front of you. But for the Dragons, they will bounce back. It does get a bit tougher this week against Parramatta, but they are a few men down with injuries and off-field incidents as well. So, look, they'll regroup and they'll bounce back, and I'm sure they'll be better for the run in that game. But look, the standout players for me, we'll start off with the Sharks. I think CC Fatalakai, 14 runs, 125 meters, a try, line break, assist, tackle break, and 16 tackles. And Nico Hines, for me, like I said, from the Sharks, again, another phenomenal performance. 17 runs, 100 meters. A try, 5 from 6 in conversion, so he's converting him a lot better this time around. Bit confusing. He couldn't convert him when it was dry and sunny, but he converting him in the wet, no issue. So not sure what's going on there. Combined for total, only had 16 points to name from the 36, which is about almost 50% of the points. With a line break, try assist, 3 tackle breaks, and 2 offloads. And as I said, that try earlier as well. So, look, the Sharks will just continue to rave with confidence from that victory. They do have a tough opponent in the Knights this week, but they're playing some great football, and they really deserve that win, 36-12 over the Dragons. The Warriors 16 defeated the Tigers 12, and I have to say, in proper and full confidence, that this may have been the worst game I've ever seen. Definitely this year, and I've seen a lot of bad Bulldogs games the last 5-6 years. I'd rather someone peel my eyes, and I'd rather someone just help me avoid watching games like this. I wish I was warned. I wish I was warned not to watch this game, but it was just so poor from both sides. There wasn't at any point where you'd say, oh, this team played better than the other. They played just as bad as each other. 14-12 halftime. They only get a penalty, 16-12. In that second half, the errors. My goodness, there were so many errors this game from both sides, especially the Tigers. And look, on the Tigers, and I'm very disappointed in them. I got to say, I'm very disappointed. I know I gave them an absolute belting last week, the biggest circus of a club, but you come out on the field, your best chance to win a game to, kickstart the season is against the Warriors, who are so inconsistent, who have a couple injuries as well. Tohu Harris missing, Sean Johnson missing, Ash Taylor missing, and Elise Katoa had his eye poked out as well. So they had a couple of players missing. But then to go out and to not capitalize on the Warriors' weakness in defense, I don't understand. Look, they played okay in a patch of the first half. I think in that last 10, 15 minutes, they really started to target that right edge, and they started to play some really good football. They targeted the Warriors' right edge, so Oliver Gildart played his best game in a while. But even to this end, it wasn't that phenomenal. But my problem here is 11 minutes to go, Montoya gets sin bid for a professional foul. So already, the Warriors' left-hand side defense is missing a man. So they're trying to get numbers to cover. In the set right after, the Tigers take up 5 men straight down the middle. And they go to their left-hand side and target the Warriors' right-hand side defense. But you're a man down on the other side. And I've been avoiding this for a while, but I have to blame Luke Brooks here. I mean, if you're a halfback, you must be salivating at the fact that you've got 12 men opposite you, that you can obviously go and attack where their weakness is, and then not even realize the opportunity they have to score that many points in that 10-minute time frame. I just sat there watching this game. They never targeted that side, that edge defense. And Warriors held on, set after set. But the Tigers made so many errors. So many errors. And it's unfortunate because that was a game that was really in their grasp. But because of the errors they made, Brooks made a few errors. Dane Laurie made a few errors. Obviously in the game, Utoi Kamanu left the field with an injury. Luciano Leilua played carrying on with the injury as well. They were playing a few men down, but it's no excuse. But then the Tigers, they finally picked someone, who would come in and fill in for James Roberts in Stafford Toa. And my goodness, he was fantastic for them. He didn't make any mistakes. But it's those big pressure moments that the Tigers can't deliver on. Like I said, they had that 10 minutes where they were Warriors were 12, 1 man down, playing with 12 men, and they didn't capitalize on that. Not only that, but 50 seconds to go, Gildart makes half a break down the sideline, tries to keep the ball afloat, and then offloads it forward pass into the touchline. I mean, you can't be doing things like that. Especially 50 seconds to go and you're down by 4. You'd rather hold the ball, punch out at least 2 more tackles, and then in those 2 tackles, try to create set plays, try to create something out of nothing to get that try, to get that victory. So a lot of inexperience there, and there shouldn't be because Brooks needs to be that main man, and he wasn't there that night, and he really stuffed up there. So, but look, on the Warriors, look, I've got to say, Reece Walsh came up with the play of the game right on the strike at halftime. Tigers make a break. Gildart makes a break down the sideline, breaks a few tackles, shows and goes a few times, cuts through, gets the ball to Stafford Toa, who's fumbling the ball, gives enough time for Reece Walsh to come around and absolutely deck him right on the bell at halftime and stopped him from scoring. Absolute cracker finish to that half. And it set up for like, okay, so the Tigers are going to continue down that side and continue attacking them, but they didn't. It's not rocket science that if you've got them in Symbian, that you attack them and you attack where they're weak. But Tigers didn't do that, and I don't know if it's a leadership thing. I don't know what. It's very poor, but they're stuffed up and they're going to really rue that loss for a long time. Adam Fanua-Blake, 15 runs, 150 metres, 63 post-contact, 27 tackles. No-nonsense performance for Fanua-Blake in the 40-odd minutes he was on the field. Josh Curran, 15 runs, 141 metres, 55 post-contact metres, a tackle break, 2 offloads, and 28 tackles as well. They were the standouts for me. There weren't really many standouts from the Tigers. Like I said, Gildart was fantastic. Probably his best game he's played so far, trying to get a bit more confident in finding his feet in the NRL. And I thought Stafford Toa should be in that side week in, week out. I thought it was fantastic. I know he was out there covering for James Roberts and also Ken Momalo, but Stafford Toa, you got to find a spot for him. He was playing regular first grade last year. To see him relegated this year is very poor. The Rabbitohs 28 defeated the Roosters 16. Bit of a shock to the system, this one, I've got to be honest. Rabbitohs was so clinical, and they played about perfect footy for about 25 to 30 minutes of that first half. Ken Murray leading from the front. Ilias looking a bit more comfortable. Started to see a little bit more from Ilias that I hadn't seen in the previous round, so it's going to take a bit of time. But the Rabbitohs they were just so strong. They played such good football. And they made the Roosters look really weak and look vulnerable. Now, I haven't seen the Roosters look like that in a very long time. But they were in all sorts. The Roosters stuffed up a couple of plays. That first try that Cameron Murray scored was so weak. It's like Radley and Takiaho were just watching who was going to get that tackle, and he just went in untouched and scored under the post. Then the play where it came off that drop ball, and Cameron Murray got that ball and then threw it over to the winger there to score that try. I'm trying to remember that winger, whether I think it was Johnston, it was the second half he scored, but it was in that first half. I believe he had the game to Jackson Paulo. I mean, there was that. Then in the second half, Latrell Mitchell capitalizes on the Roosters' error and runs the field and scores. I mean, you kill the play. You always kill the play if the ball is just there and it's free. The Roosters didn't do that, and that's how they conceded 2 of their tries. But they just had an off night. They couldn't get the ball rolling. They couldn't get out of their own area. Rabbitohs kept taking him into touch, kept putting on big hits, and they just had so many errors in their game. But look, their defense was soft, and he made the Souths look like 2021 Souths with Aaron Reynolds. But my favourite moment in that game, I have to say, was when Joey Manu scored that try, going over the try and threw the ball in his face. I loved that. You don't get to see much of that, especially with all the rivalry and the build-up into the game. But look, it was Latrell that had the last laugh. That try he went at the end was fantastic. But you got to remember as well, the Roosters had their chances to come back in that game, especially in the second half. It was 12-10 for a while there and stayed at 18-10. The Rabbitohs had 2 tries that were disallowed, 1 for obstruction and 1 for knock-on, and they still scored 2 more tries. So the Roosters had that chance, were always in the game to get out, but they didn't, and they didn't capitalise on that, and the Rabbitohs made them pay with those 2 tries. They scored that consolation try towards the end of the game, but it wasn't enough. And the Roosters had a bit of question marks on the Roosters at the moment, but the Rabbitohs, they finally get their first win of the season. And the 2 men that impressed me the most, Cameron Murray, 17 runs, 152 metres, a try, 2 line breaks, 2 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, offload, 42 tackles. That's a complete performance if I've ever seen one. With Cam Murray, and a shout out to Jason Demetrio here, because he finally woke up to himself and realised that he can't be playing Murray off the bench in a tactical move because it doesn't work. He's an 80-minute player, and the only way that he will be able to continually be influential in that side if he's starting 13, and he's the damn captain of the side as well. It's not like he's just another player. He's the captain. He shouldn't be starting off the bench. Jai Arrow, 18 runs, 173 metres, 81 post-contact with 2 tackle breaks, offload, and 33 tackles. A really good game from Jai Arrow in building that confidence, getting about 60 to 70 minutes a game as well, which is really good to see. Moving to the Saturday game, the Panthers 38 defeated the Knights 20, and I thought this was a really entertaining game. The Panthers are still 3 from 3. They're undefeated, and they went out and got the job done. Now, the Knights, I don't think they were bad. I think the moment that turned the game on its head was when Mitch Barnett got sent off for that high elbow on Chris Smith. Apart from that, they were in that game. And when he was off, they still played some really good football. So, having to defend the next 55 minutes of the game, 1 man down, apologies, is near impossible. Mitch Barnett, look, he had a brain snap. And I know that when he was coming through the 20s, he had a few hot-headed moments, and he's really done the best to really get that out of his game. He's had it out of his game, but it was just a brain snap. I don't think he's a terrible guy. I think he's a great guy from all accounts. I think he is someone that's become more of a leader at South Sydney, but at the Knights. Well, not South Sydney. Oh my goodness. But just looking at that, there was no need for that to be done. There was no need for that hit to be put on Chris Smith. Chris Smith's missing the game this week due to HIA concerns, and Barnett copped a 6-week suspension for it, which is very fair enough, which we'll get to a bit later. But the point I'm trying to make is that the Panthers, look, they were fantastic, but the Knights weren't terrible. And if Barnett plays and continues in that game, I see a potential Knights victory. I genuinely do. But look, I've got to give credit to this Panthers side. I mean, you look at their backs and you look at the people that got filling in. Isaac Tago is playing some great football. And Taylor May scoring a hat-trick, first game of the season. I mean, look, it's going to be hard to leave him out of the side when you've got Brian Thorpe coming back from that ankle syndesmosis injury. From the MCL injury. But he's been playing some great football. And with those two on that left-hand edge defense with May and Targo, they're a massive threat, and they're only going to continue to build that combination that they've done in Cup and bring it into first grade. So big shout out to them. They both played fantastic. May scoring 3 tries, Targo scoring 2. But look, I was really impressed, like I said, with their performance, the Panthers, and they're the only team to remain undefeated, while the Knights unfortunately suffered their first loss of the season. The players that stood out for me as well, now I've got to give it to Scott Sorensen. I thought he was really influential filling in for Liam Martin. 11 runs, 121 metres, 53 post-contact, and 19 tackles. And for the Knights, Daniel Saifidi, 14 runs, 154 metres, 65 post-contact, a tackle break, and 24 tackles. The Eels 28 defeated the Storm 24. And look, this game went down to the wire. It was a pretty enjoyable game. Now, when you consider all things, the Eels, the reason they won this game was because their effort was there throughout the 80 minutes. You can't question their effort and you can't deny their effort. But they still missed 44 tackles. Storm were just as bad and missed about 30 odd as well. But usually when Melbourne have their full strength side, you miss 44 tackles against them, it's 40 points put on you. That's not even a question. But they did everything to continue to hang in there. Anytime Storm fought back, the Eels came back as well. Now, what won them the game was 2 plays from Ray Stone. That try he scored to bring it into extra time, and also the follow-up play when Mitch Moses kicked the field goal and he went out. He was the only one chasing from that side. Gets the ball. Unfortunately, when he stepped up his right leg, he went and tore his ACL, which was really sad to see because he had won the game for the club and won the game from the team. But it was really unfortunate to see him go down with that ACL injury. But they're just the effort plays. Now, do I think the try should have been awarded? I don't. And the reason for that is because you can't have para players lining up in front of the marker. You can't do that. And it's been something that has been questioned and been talked about for so long, and nothing has been done about it. But there was about 2 or 3 men lined up against right next to the forward and in line with the marker so that the marker wouldn't go and obviously capitalise and try to get onto charging down that field goal attempt by Mitch Moses. So it was very disappointing to see that they got that try awarded. Look, they did enough to win the game, and I'll give that to them, but the officiating's got to be a little bit better when it comes to having blockers in if they want to attempt the field goal. But look, the Storm, they weren't at their best. Like I said, they had moments of brilliance, a couple minutes to go with Brendan Smith making that break straight through the middle of the field and putting it through for Pappenhausen to score. Look, got him right back in the game, 5 minutes to go. But look, they had too many errors as well. They were playing some uncharacteristic football at times. And they really missed the influence of Harry Grant at hooker. They really did miss it. And I just think that what Harry Grant brings is so important to the side that he was really, really missed in that game. Look, he plays. I still think Storm win. I do. Even though Para seemed to be Storm's bogey team. Sorry, Storm to be the bogey team for Parramatta or however it's worded. I'm not too sure. But look, the Eels keep getting up against the Storm. Been like that for the last 3 or 4 times that they've met. But look, a couple of things that I noticed from that game was it was about 10 to go. And the referee missing that tackle that Nelson Sofa Solomona put on Makahesi Makatawa. My goodness, it was such a blatant high shot. It definitely deserved 10 in the bin. But how the refs missed it beyond me. How they weren't pulled up on it before, I'm not sure. To only get away with a fine, I think it's pushing it. I really do think it's pushing it. But look, for Parramatta, I thought Dylan Brown, he's been playing some fantastic football. Really looking threatening, breaking the line. You know, he had that line break where he put that ball in for Gutherson to score that try. But he just, every time he touches the ball now, he's so threatening. And it's really good to see it from Dylan Brown really stepping up and taking a load off Mitch Moses for him to play his natural game. But I'm liking what I've seen from Dylan Brown this year, and I'm hoping that form really continues as the season goes on. The forwards from Parramatta, you can't complain with the efforts here. You know, RCG, 20 runs, 197 metres, 74 post-contact, 2 tackle breaks, offload 31 tackles. Junior Paulo, 20 runs, 192 metres, 68 post-contact metres, 2 tackle breaks, offload 29 tackles. I mean, the engine room of the Parramatta side, their forward pack is dynamite, and they continually rip in and put in massive performances week in and week out, and that's what really keeps the Parra side in a lot of these games. Apart from that shocking high hit, Asafa Solomona was a standout for me. 17 runs, 160 metres, 71 post-contact metres, 3 tackle breaks, 2 offloads, and 25 tackles as well. So it's what we were looking to definitely improve, and getting Harry Grant back this week will definitely help that. And I think with the Eels, they just got to be cautious in defence. Missing that many tackles can't win you that many games. So they've got to work on that and get that right as soon as possible. The Raiders 24 defeated the Titans 22. And I really think that this was a very lucky escape for the Raiders. They shouldn't have escaped and got away with that win. They scored that try a couple minutes before halftime, which kind of gives them that bit of that confidence there. But it took the second half for every player to play their role and play it efficiently. You know, I thought Brad Schneider, in his second game of NRL, I thought he's been playing some really good footy. I've loved what he's brought to the side. He's brought a lot of calmness and composure to that side. And you watch him play, and you watch exactly what he does, and you think he's an experienced campaigner at times, and I really do believe that. But that grabber he put in for Charles Nickel-Klokstad to score that try was fantastic, and I think the Raiders will take a lot of confidence from that second half performance especially. They faded out that first half and fought back in that second half to get that victory over the Titans. Now, the Titans, they need to be better. They started off really hot. They looked like they were going to run out to about a 40-0 lead by halftime, the way they were playing and how potent they were in attack. But like I mentioned last week, it's their defense that's letting them down at the moment. It's their defense that is their weakness. And you can't be having that, especially when you're up 22 points to 0. You have to be on song in defense. If you're going to apply it in attack, you got to apply it in defense. And because they don't have that grit in defense, they allowed the Raiders to come back in and win that game. But they need to be better. They have to be playing some better football. You know, like I said, I'm loving bits and pieces of what they do in attack. I think Fafita still needs a lot more early ball. I really do. But, I just think that in a defense, they've really got to aim up and they've got to toughen up and they've got to get experienced campaigners in there that can defend that line, because from what I've been seeing at the moment, they're looking really weak in defense and they got exposed on the weekend. And the Raiders got their victory, which they really shouldn't have, but they did enough to get that victory. Joseph Tapine, 14 runs, 148 metres, 62 post-contact metres, 2 offloads and 19 tackles. Playing some good football. Joseph Tapine has been one of my favourite players to watch the last few weeks. And Dave Fafita, 15 runs, 173 metres, 67 post-contact metres, 2 line breaks, 4 tackle breaks, and 28 tackles. Every time he touches that ball, he's honestly so threatening. And like I said, keep him there for 80 minutes, get him early ball, and he can cause a lot of damage. The Cowboys 38 defeated the Broncos 12. Now, I just have to say, this Cowboys performance is the best performance I've seen since the 2015 Grand Final. And I'm not even joking. They were insanely amazing. I've never seen a team dominated the entire 80 minutes the way the Cowboys did against the Broncos. And I haven't seen that kind of performance in recent memory from any other side. They were amazing. They completed all their sets. They made no errors all game. They did not make a single error. They completed at about 90 to 93%. And they kept the Broncos on the back foot. Now, the Broncos, they were outclassed, completely outclassed. I thought the halves of Tom Dearden and Chad Townsend, I can't believe I'm saying this, outclassed Albert Kelly and Adam Reynolds. This was Adam Reynolds' first game at Suncorp. And there was two errors there that really stuffed him up. That first error was the kick out on a full in play. Cowboys go get the repeat set. And then when Reynolds goes to do the dropout, also out on the full again. I mean, you cannot do that. And they really made the Broncos pay with that. They were completely outclassed. The forwards didn't step up, apart from Payne Haas and Patrick Carrigan. There needs to be more emphasis on the forwards doing a lot more work. You know, Capewell hasn't been playing. He's been playing 80 minutes, but he hasn't been making a lot of runs. He hasn't been, doing the hard yards in that area. So he needs to do a bit more there. You've got the likes of the kids like, Jordan Riki needs to do a lot more. I know he came off with a rib injury. But there's players in there. Ryan James needs to step up. They get Flegler back this week, which is promising. But look, the Broncos were completely outclassed. And they didn't do enough to really put themselves in that game. Herbie Farnworth is such a gem at the moment. What I'm disappointed in seeing is that the same ball that Farnworth is getting, Tony Staggs isn't getting that ball either. He needs to cry out for that ball. He needs to plead for that ball. Because like I said, once he gets an early ball, he can create something out of nothing. And I know it will take time for him to build that confidence, but I genuinely think you give him that ball and then he'll be dynamite for the Broncos. Jeremiah Nanai is coming up as a proper superstar, and I'm really impressed at what I've seen from him this year. He's playing some unbelievable football, and I think the Cowboys need to do what it takes to keep him at the club. I think the way he's been playing has been really impactful. 19 years old, and he's already starting for the Cowboys. It's a huge role, but he seems to be getting it done with a lot of ease. But what I was impressed with from this game was from the Cowboys was not just from him, but it was from the entire forward pack that were making some big strides. They all pitched in and they all played some really good minutes. They put in some monster meters, and they all were very impressive defensively as well. Let's take a look. So, Jordan McLean, 14 runs, 151 meters. Tom Gilbert, 16 runs, 159 meters. Nanai, 14 runs, 117 meters with 3 tries. Taumalolo, 13 runs, 141 meters. Off the bench, Ruben Cotter, 16 runs, 164 meters. And Griffin Nemi, 13 runs, 134 meters. I mean, these are big, big numbers from these boys. And in a forward pack that doesn't look that amazingly intimidating, they're putting up some big numbers. Now, Colin Hess came off early with a shoulder injury that, only had the one run for 10 meters, which was really tough to see. But, it just took the other boys to step up, and they really stepped up to the plate, and they had a very big performance in them. And it was really good to see that from the Cowboys. But look, I mean, you got to give credit to their backline as well. I thought the halves in Dearden and Townsend were phenomenal. Valentine Holmes was fantastic. He definitely won the battle over Katoni Staggs there. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow still playing beautiful football, fullback as well. I mean, everyone that played pitched in well. Everyone did their job. Everyone played their role to perfection. And it was really, really good to see that from that side. The Broncos have to be better. They can't keep relying on their forwards to get the job done week in and week out. And other forwards really need to step up and take the load and burden off Haas and Carrigan. But yeah, like I said, the players that stood out for me was Ruben Cotter, 16 runs, 164 meters with 68 post-contact meters, 7 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, and 28 tackles off the bench. Playing bigger minutes considering Colin Hess came off the field with that shoulder injury. Jeremiah Nanai, as I said, 3 tries, 14 runs, 117 meters, 2 tackle breaks, 25 tackles. And Payne Haas is standard for the Broncos. I mean, he's pretty much the blueprint there. 12 runs, 163 meters, 71 post-contact meters, a line break, 5 tackle breaks, offload, and 30 tackles. So the Cowboys playing some good football, and that's the reason they're sitting second on the ladder. In the last game, Seagulls 13 defeated the Bulldogs 12. Now, I've got to say, the Seagulls were very, very lucky to win this game. Dirty game. It was like similar conditions to what was on Thursday night. Really wet kind of football. They didn't ice opportunities, and they had so much ball in that second half to really put the Bulldogs away, but they failed to capitalize on it. Over to the Bulldogs. They started off really strong, but their problem is they can't maintain that lead. They were exposed in the corner again, unfortunately. They were exposed on that wing. And because they were exposed on that wing, it really made things tougher for them to really make an impact in that side. Now, you got to remember as well, defensively, the Bulldogs have been phenomenal. And apart from that, edge defense has been really weak. But when you consider all things in that second half, especially with the relentless amount of defense that they had to do and the attack that was coming from Manly, they held themselves really well. Aaron Schopp, was one I was really impressed with, especially on Tom Turbo. He really did his best to limit Tom Turbo as much as he could, and made sure he didn't have a massive influence on that game, especially in that second half. He shut him down really well, which was good to see. It'll take time for the Bulldogs attack to come, but we can't keep relying on, the defense was good, but their tackle was woeful. You know, it needs to, we need to start putting the wheels in motion, and they only need continually to find ways to win these games. Dogs could be 3-0. We could be sitting on top in second place with the Panthers, but we're not, and it's because of our attack. Not to say I'm still very proud, I'm still impressed from what I've seen, but it's those victories that are really important, that are in front of us, that we can capitalize on, that we should be capitalizing on. Martin Tapau was a standout for me. 14 runs, 135 meters, 2 tackle breaks, offload 22 tackles. And Daly Cherry Evans, as I said, getting it done in the wet with that field goal as well. Paul Vaughan, 16 runs, 146 meters, 56 post-contact meters, a tackle break, and 29 tackles. Was a big standout for me. But I'm loving, again, what the Bulldogs are doing with their bench. They're utilising the bench really well. Hetherington, unfortunately, to come off early and be out for the season, which sucks. But Corey Waddell's been stepping it up. Thompson's been playing good football. Max King, quite the diamond in amongst all the roughies there. So, look, the Bulldogs are getting there. The Seagulls have to be better. They have to improve. They've got to get out of this rut of poor attack, and they've got to come up with different ways to utilise Trbojevic a bit better, and even get the other players to step up as well. That's all for round 3. I mean, that was a pretty interesting, detailed analysis of round 3. Moving on to the Supercoach segment, I finished on 968 this week. Not very happy with it, if I'm going to be completely Frank Sinatra with you lot, but I lost 4 of my 5 leagues. The other league I won was just a fluke league. I beat Corey Parker. He scored 777, so his side was pretty rubbish. But look, the bonus is I get Nathan Cleary and Harry Grant back this week in my side, which is so important. Cleary's playing his first game of the year. I've held him since the beginning of the year. And Harry Grant, I just need him in that side. The way he plays, the 80 minutes he plays, and what he does, and the try assists, and his line break assists, and his always attacking stats and defense is so important to my side. Angus Crichton named on the bench again this week. So I've gone and I've done a downgrade. I've traded Angus Crichton with a break-even of 109 to Bo Firma, whose break-even is about minus 29. And he's already gone up 60k, but I'm expecting him to go up another 100k easily. So that saved me about 170 odd. The second trade I've made, I'm biting the bullet here. Talatau Amone has to go from my side. My halves are looking very weak at the moment. My 5/8s are Talatau Amone and Lachlan Ilias. So what I'd done was I traded Talatau Amone to Cameron Munster. He's about to go up in about 60k this week, break even of 6. So he's looking up to get a big price rise, and they come up against the Bulldogs, my side. So he could really tear it up. Third trade, I might do a third trade if I'm desperate. If Ethan Bullimore is named and he continues to be in the run-on side, I'm heavily considering going down the route of trading him out and bringing in Taylor May. I know it's a week early. I know I shouldn't be doing that, but I can't have him leak more cash for me, and I can't have him playing limited minutes and only scoring 12. So those are my trades for this week. That's what I'm looking to do, and I'll be looking to get back on in the winner's circle and state my claim for those trophies again. News around the NRL world. It's been a big week in terms of news around the sport of NRL. Apologies. Tom Burgess is being shopped around by his own management. Rabbitohs want to keep him on board, but it's his management that's been shopping him around. Corey Horsburgh has re-signed with the Raiders for the next 2 years. The Warriors finally have announced, due to the COVID restrictions being eased in New Zealand, they have announced that they'll be heading back home in July to play their first home game in 2 or 3 years against the West Tigers. Definitely an occasion that you'd love to be there for. And they'll finally get to play their first home game there. So really excited for that. Jerome Hughes and Harry Grant have made decisions over their future, their contract's future. So they'll be staying put in Melbourne. While Cameron Munster's talks with his management in Braden Astor, Sisu Sports, I believe they're called, in Melbourne, they've asked for some extra time to go over the contract. Now, Munster has been told to take a massive pay decrease. And he's currently on $1 million a year. They've asked him to take a $400,000 pay decrease across his contract, which he's not looking to do. So they've extended out their talks, and they're going to see how they can come up with keeping Munster at Melbourne, or he'll be heading to the Dolphins. Speaking of the Dolphins, they're getting a documentary filmed about them coming into the NRL and by Stan Sports, and Wayne Bennett will be heavily featured there. So I'm excited to see what kind of new sport documentary we'll be looking at in terms of the Dolphins. Ewan Aiken has asked for an early release from his deal. He'll be released at the end of the season. There are currently no shooters at this stage, but he's transitioned himself from a center to a back rower, and he's been playing some really good football in the back row, and he's causing a lot of damage in the way he's been playing. And I think he's playing the best football of his career, if I'm going to be completely honest. So any clubs that need back rowers, Ewan Aiken is up for sale. The Eagles have pulled the offer on the table for Jack Bird. They were heavily interested in Jack Bird, but they've decided to go in a different direction, and they're now keen on Briton Nakora, which means that Jack Bird will stay put at the Dragons, while Franklin Pele has been linked to a move to the Tigers. So a couple of Sharks boys are trying to keep put. They want to stay, but Tigers are coming in with some big deals there. Speaking of the Tigers, they've signed Sione Fainu on a 3.5-year deal effective immediately. Now, he is the brother of Manes Fainu, who is currently serving... he was waiting to appear in court for that stabbing at that function in Liverpool last year, or I believe the year before. Matt Purcell is the hooker in Super League, was a former Manly hooker. His management have shopped into the Brisbane Broncos to sort out their hooking woes there. I don't think it would be a terrible buy. I think if Jake Turbin does decide to go to the Dolphins, I think Matt Purcell could really make an impact in that Broncos side, and I think the experience he's gained over in the Super League will only help him in the NRL. The NRL have decided to allow George Burgess to continue playing for the Dragons, and a big call being made here. Now, he is currently being accused of groping a woman without her consent. Now, considering it doesn't attain to the 9-year or 11-year jail time, the NRL have continued to that into play, and he won't fall under the no-fault stand-down policy. The Leigh Centurions in Super League are chasing Blake Ferguson to play out the rest of the year on a bit of a rich contract here for Blake Ferguson. Cameron Smith and Jonathan Thurston have been named assistant coaches alongside Josh Hannay of the Queensland Maroons. Interesting one, this. It actually scares me, although they have no coaching experience between them. I'm very intrigued to see exactly how they're going to go. And they're all geniuses. They're very smart, the way all these members read the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they go and to see what impact they can have for Queensland. They created a dynasty as players. Now they're about to create a dynasty as coaches, and it's a very scary prospect for New South Wales. Mitch Barnett, like I mentioned, copped 6 weeks for that high shot. Good ruling by the NRL. Can't disagree there. Phil Gould has rejected. Apparently, the Bulldogs were offered Payne Haas for $1 million a season, and Phil Gould rejected that because he doesn't believe that Payne Haas is worth $1 million. I'm going to agree here. I know it's a bit controversial, but I'm going to agree here. At the Bulldogs, we need big game experience. I know Payne Haas has played for Australia. I know he's played for Origin. I know, I'd like to see him one day win a competition. But he's still very young, and I just don't think $1 million for a prop forward in Payne Haas is really going to do that for us. We're lacking halves. We've got our hooker for next year in Red Money, but we need halves. So for Feel Good to reject that, and look, Payne Haas I talk about him every week. He's one of my favorite, probably my favorite forward at the moment, and probably the best forward in the game. It's not even debatable. But I just don't think the $1 million price tag is really going to help the Bulldogs and really help them trying to bring in a specialised halfback to kind of run our team. I think they need to focus on other areas of Dogs, and Phil Good's made the right decision here and not biting the bullet for that $1 million a season for Payne Haas. And the last bit there, the Eels are pretty keen on Isan Masters as a mid-season buy to cover their back row to cover their back line and also potentially the back row. The Isan Masters has been on the outer since he went to the Cowboys. Now the Titans hasn't only played like 2 or 3 games, but the Eels looking in for a quick fix to come to that back line and play till Sevo, Masters, and does to come back. Now moving over to all things round 4, we've got the Tigers coming up against the Tigers. So the Tigers coming against the Titans. Apologies. Now for the Titans here, Jermaine Asako will debut at fullback, replacing Jaden Campbell, who's out with a rib injury. And Corey Thompson is back, pushing Craig Margie to the other wing, taking the spot of Philip Sammy, who's come down with COVID. And for the Tigers, James Roberts takes the spot in the centres from Luke Garner, pushing him into the back row and pushing Alex Seyfarth to the bench. Ken Mamalo takes the spot of Stafford Toa. Very stupid. Toa should be there over James Roberts, but again, it's the Tigers, and I'm not surprised they made a stupid decision. And Kelma Tuolagi returns in the second row. Jake Simpkin moving to the reserves. Stefano Tuakamani is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with that ankle syndesmosis injury, with Zane Marsgrove starting in his place. I'm still going to go to the Titans here. I do know, and it's very important, guys, you also check in late mail. I believe I have found out that Jared Wallace will be coming into the side at some point. I believe Isaac Liu is out due to COVID. So it'll be interesting to see what Jared Wallace can bring to that side. He played phenomenal all last year. Very tough to see him miss out so far this year, but he returns to the side off the bench, and he's pretty keen to rip in and get a victory for the Titans, and then as they look to bounce back. I want to go to the Titans here. I think with the Tigers, I still don't think they'll be able to go and put in a decent performance. And I think with the Titans, I think, them. I know they're coming off a 5-day turnaround, but they get a few fresh faces back. Jermaine Osako will come in, Corey Thompson will come in, and Jared Wallace comes in. So I think it's good replacements there. But I think the Titans will get the job by, I reckon it'll be a lot closer than what everyone's expecting. I'm expecting a 12 to 14 point win there. Sharks will come up against the Knights, probably one of my games of the round for this week. CC Fatalakai moves to the centres to replace Connor Tracy, who's out with a groin injury, and Teague Wilton comes back from suspension, moving into second row. For the Knights, Kevin Ponga will finally make his return, replacing Tex Hoy, who's been dropped, and Brody Jones will replace Mitch Barnett, who's out for 6 weeks with suspension, and Suaso Su will come off the bench. Suaso Su's been playing Cup. He played a bit of Cup last week, just he had a shoulder reconstruction, and now it's good to see him back on the paddock there. This game, I am going to go the Sharks. I think the Sharks will get the job done here. I think the way they've been playing has been too good, and I think the Sharks will win by 6 points. There won't be much in it for this one. The grand final rematch, Panthers will be coming up against the Rabbitohs. Nathan Cleary, just when the Panthers are going that well, Nathan Cleary comes back into the side, takes the spot of Sean O'Sullivan, who's been playing great football, but he's dropped. And Scott Sorensen, will replace Chris Smith, who's out with a HIA from that shot from Mitch Barnett. And Lizzie Smith will come onto the bench. The Rabbitohs will be 1-17. I think I'm going to go Panthers. Usually I'd go Rabbitohs if O'Sullivan wasn't playing, but now that Cleary is back and he's 100% fit, I'm going to go the Panthers, and I still think it'll be about 10 points. I don't think there'll be much in this game. Warriors will be coming up against the Broncos on Saturday afternoon. Jack Murchie will take the spot of Bailey Sironen, who's come down with COVID, with Sean Johnson named on the extended bench, and I've been hearing that he could come into the halves. And from the Broncos, Thomas Flegler will return from suspension from last year and take the spot of Corey Jensen in the reserves. Now, also taking a look at that, I know that TC Rabadi's been named on the bench as well, could move to the starting side. Capewell is out with a cork and he's looking to potentially play, but I think he'll be sitting out this week. If Sean Johnson comes back, I'm going to go the Warriors, but if it doesn't come back, I'm going to go the Broncos, and I think the Broncos will turn around and get the job done. Seagulls will come up against the Raiders, 5:30 on Saturday. Seagulls will be 1-17. For the Raiders, Nick Kotrick will replace Sebastian Chris, who's out due to COVID. Now, I'm gonna back the Seagulls. I think it'll be I think 4 points. I think there's gonna be a lot of nail biters this week. I think Seagulls will be the team I'll be backing. Cowboys come up against the Roosters. Cowboys 1-17. Roosters, Daniel Saluki Fafita will take the spot of Fletcher Baker. Again, Roosters are really struggling at the moment. Cowboys are in red hot form, and they're looking to bring that form back home. I'm going to go the Cowboys. I know it's a bit questionable, but I think the way they're going, I'm going to back the Cowboys in this game. And they'll do it by 12 points. Storm will come up against the Bulldogs this week. Xavier Coates is back in the side, replacing Nick Meaney, who's been dropped to the reserves, and Harry Grant comes back at hooker, pushing Brendan Smith to the bench, and Chris Lewis dropping to the reserves. For the Bulldogs, Corey Waddell will replace Jack Henrington, who's out for the season with a shoulder injury, moving Luke Thompson to starting prop, and Avasi Manufagai over to the bench. Oh, man. It's hard to ignore Storm here. So a lot of you will go with Storm, but I think the Dogs are getting closer and closer each week. I think we could potentially beat the Storm in Melbourne. So, look, fingers crossed it'll be a close game, but I'm not so sure about that, but we'll just see what happens. In the final game, Eels will come up against the Dragons. Ryan Madison and Bryce Cartwright will come into the side and take the spot of Rumu Gregg, who's been dropped to reserves, and Ray Stone, who's out with that ACL injury for the season. For the Dragons, Matt Feagai will take the spot of Cody Ramsey, who's done his hammy. Jack Kuchevsky will replace Jaden Sewer, who's suspended for the week, and Aaron Woods will come onto the bench after returning from a hamstring injury. I'm going to go the Eels this game, and I think I'm going to go the Eels by 16 points. I think they'll beat the Dragons comfortably on the weekend. Guys, thanks for tuning in to League Chat with the Stat. You know where to find us on all our social platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And make sure you check us off all of our every podcasting stream as well. I've got big things coming in plan this year. So if you guys want to jump on the podcast, you want me to come to you, I'll be able to come to you, bring all the equipment and come down and record a podcast with you guys, no matter where you guys are. So we're looking to bring that into effect this year. And you'll be seeing a bit more of this when I'm recording in the studio, but a bit more also of going out to different places and recording from there. So looking forward to doing that this year. But thanks for tuning in to another great episode. You have yourselves a lovely week. Enjoy the footy. Tune into the late mail. And let's hope we all get 8 from 8 this week in our tips. And just enjoy another great weekend of rugby league. All the best, guys. Take it easy.